Recently I watched a video about the Australian Special Forces and learned about them for the first time. It was very interesting and I want to learn more about them. Today I'm going to be doing that by looking at one of their units in particular, the Australian SASR, and looking at their role in the Vietnam War. Now I learned a little bit about this from the Red Gum song. I was only 19. And yeah, I want to know more, of course, about what actually happened. So tell me your knowledge about what actually happened, about Australia's role in this war. It says here, Australia's forgotten war. So hopefully maybe this can remind people, let people know what actually happened. And I'm just really eager to learn. Let's watch this one.
To many people, the Vietnam War was a conflict between the United States fighting on the side of South Vietnam and the Viet Cong fighting alongside the army of North Vietnam.
Yeah, sorry to stop straight away, but that is a kind of common misconception that it was only the USA. I feel like any other ally that was in that war doesn't really get the respect or the knowledge that they deserve, so this should be interesting.
However,
and tell me if that's a common misconception you find as well.
Many other countries were keen to stop the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, and one of these countries keen to fight were Australia and their elite Special Air Service Regiment. Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War started in 1962, with them sending 30 military advisors who formed the Australian Army Training Team Vietnam, who used their skills and knowledge of jungle warfare gained in the Malayan Emergency to train the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, the ground forces of South Vietnam. Over the years, the number of Australian advisors in Vietnam grew, peaking at 227 in 1970. In addition to advising the South Vietnam Army, in April 1965, Robert Menzies, the Australian Prime Minister, announced that Australia would be providing an infantry battalion for service in Vietnam, and in May, the 1st Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment departed from Australia and fought alongside the US Army. However, the differences in the way the two countries would operate made both sides agree to allow Australia to fight independently in Vietnam. This led to the formation of the 1st Australian Task Force in April 1966, which included a detachment from the SASR. This task force was based in the Phuoc Toi province at a base called New Dat. The mission of the SASR was to conduct long-range reconnaissance patrols in order to provide intelligence for the 1st Australian Task Force. Squadrons of the SASR rotated through Vietnam on year-long deployments, with each of the 3 Sabre squadrons completing 2 tours before the last squadron was withdrawn in 1971. Furthermore, from late 1968, soldiers from the New Zealand SAS were attached to each squadron of the SASR. They would operate on 24-hour-long missions in the areas surrounding friendly bases. These missions included medium-range reconnaissance patrols, observation of enemy troop movements, and long-range offensive operations and ambushing in enemy-dominated territory. Throughout the war, their role went from reconnaissance to an offensive fighting force with the 1st Australian Task Force commander from October 1967 to October 1968. Brig Hughes explaining that the kill rate achieved by the SAS was very gratifying. I did not view the SAS as an intelligence gathering organisation, rather as a reaction force to intelligence gathered by other means.
Oh, that's interesting. The kill rate achieved by the SAS was very gratifying. That's an interesting way to describe a kill rate. Tell me what you think about this so far. And also he mentioned Australia having that experience in Malaya. Obviously I live in Malaysia at the moment and I've been to museums and learned a little bit about that, but I still don't know too much. So tell me more about Australia's role in Malaysia, Malaya, and what actually went on. And things like this, this specific operation, is this still remembered on things like Anzac Day and things, or is that more just celebrating and remembering everybody?
They would operate in small groups of between 4 and 6 men and move slowly through the jungle very heavily armed in order to appear as a bigger force to any enemy they had contact with.
Interesting.
Their primary method of deployment was by helicopter. However, they were occasionally deployed using the M113 APC, and one parachute drop was also carried out. Due to their slow-moving and stealthy nature, a regiment of the Viet Cong referred to the SASR as Phantoms of the Jungle, and it had been reported that the Viet Cong placed a bounty of $5,000 on each SASR soldier either captured or killed.
Whoa, so you can actually see they were very effective. And yeah, I learned on that previous video, one of SASR's speciality is reconnaissance, but it's interesting to see how they were used in this, a little bit different and very feared after being put in there as infantry and being a fighting force as well.
By the time the SASR left Vietnam in 1971, during the withdrawal of all Australian forces in Vietnam, they had completed almost 1,200 patrols, with 492 confirmed kills and 11 prisoners captured, and on the other side only one SASR operator was killed in action. One died from his wounds, one died from illness, and 28 were wounded.
And I think that's similar to what I learned, is the numbers are usually like far in favour of Australia when it comes to any specific battles, and it really just shows, yeah, like how great they are, how great their training is, just as I mentioned, how effective they are.
Whilst their overall contribution to the Vietnam War is overlooked, it is clear that the SASR were very successful in succeeding in their missions with minimal casualties, making them one of the most feared regiments in the whole war.
Okay, so yeah, very short, concise video, and that really gave me a better understanding. I think it just adds into that, like, knowing how good this unit are, SASR, and the Phantoms of the Jungle. That is quite an apt name for them, and I feel like that's something almost to be proud of, just how great they were in this. But as I mentioned, like, I feel like Australia doesn't get the respect it deserves for this specific war. As I mentioned, Red Gum Song, I was only 19, and hearing the story of a soldier and what they actually went through after they came back and things, I think they all deserve respect and to be remembered and to have their role in this war known. Yeah, so tell me what you think about this. Is this Australia's forgotten war? Did you know that Australia were in the Vietnam War? If not, what do you think about it? If you do know, tell me anything you do know that wasn't mentioned on this video. Thank you.